People who work at five-star hotels, what ridiculous stuff goes on that management doesn't want people to know? A friend of mine is employed at an exclusive boutique hotel in London where the concierge service is unlike anything you might expect. The hotel's approach to guest satisfaction is quite extraordinary. The staff are instructed to never refuse a request, opted instead to gently suggest when something might not be suitable. The concierge team has an extensive network of contacts, including a list of over 20 individuals who can provide various substances, though they themselves do not partake. They facilitate connections discreetly. For more challenging requests, they turn to professional concierge services, which come at a significant cost. For instance, if a guest desires a Prada dress at 2 a.m. for an upcoming event, the staff will go to great lengths to make it happen, even if it means waking up several people and charging a premium for the service. The profit is then shared among those involved. Similarly, if a guest wishes to attend the Wimbledon final the next day and is willing to spend £20,000, the concierge will ensure they have a ticket to the game. However, there are limits to what the staff can accommodate. On one occasion, a couple returned to the hotel intoxicated and made an inappropriate request involving the concierge. In such a situation, the staff member politely declined, indicating that the request was not suitable. So it sounds like this is the kind of place where you can say, "I need a yacht by sunset," and they'll ask for, "How many guests, sir or ma'am?" Not, "Are you insane?" Story 2. My husband spent time working at various luxury hotels and residences, the kind where wealthy people choose to live for extended periods. These places, you'd think, would be the pinnacle of luxury and cleanliness. However, what he discovered was quite the opposite, especially when it came to the state of the rooms and the behavior of the guests. Now, I'm not talking about your average successful businessman or esteemed doctor. Nope, I'm referring to a different kind of wealth. Saudi princes, heirs to vast fortunes, and members of dynasty families. Their expectations for comfort and technology are on a level that most of us can't even begin to imagine. One of the most astonishing requests came from a guest who was surprised to find that there wasn't an intercom system next to the bathroom. This individual expected to be able to call for assistance while attending to their personal needs without leaving the restroom. Another guest was dissatisfied with the size of the television in their shower, which to most of us would be a luxury item in itself. This person complained that the 40-inch TV was too small and that the absence of gold accents in the room was unacceptable. They demanded a suite that better reflected their status and taste. Perhaps one of the most particular requests came from a guest who insisted on having new bedding every single night. This individual couldn't grasp the idea of sleeping on the same sheets twice. The staff was required to go out, purchase new high-quality bedding, and remake the bed only to repeat the process the very next day. Story 3. Over the course of 10 years, I had the opportunity to work in five-star hotels, an experience that provided me with stories I could tell for days. Among these, there is one particular story that is my favorite. At our hotel, we had a concierge who was not just any ordinary employee. He was a member of Les Clefs d'Or, an esteemed and exclusive organization that is a testament to his exceptional skills and connections within the industry. This man had the remarkable ability to secure reservations that seemed impossible to the average person, such as a table at the French Laundry on the very same day a guest requested it. His charm and hospitality were on full display whenever he greeted guests with a refreshing glass of sangria, which he presented with a flourish, along with sprigs of mint and slices of lemon. He would speak passionately about his garden, sharing stories of how these garnishes were all grown by his own hand, adding a personal touch that guests found utterly delightful. However, the reality behind the scenes was quite different from what he was telling. The truth was that the mint, the lemon, and any other garnishes enhancing the sangria were not from his garden at all, but rather purchased from the local grocery store. As for the sangria itself, it was far from a premium vintage. It was the most economical box variety we could source. Oh, cool, okay. The reveal that the sangria is actually a budget box variety is like finding out your favorite model is just really good at Photoshop. Story 4. Corporate intern events could sometimes turn upside down, particularly when drinks are involved. One time, there was an annual event where a company would bring 80 young interns to our hotel as part of a site visit tour, and it was always a challenging time. The situation was infuriating as it seemed like someone could get seriously hurt every year. One year, 3 interns required hospital treatment, and one of them even sent the hospital bill to the hotel. However, it was clear that we were not responsible for his medical issues given our efforts to prevent such situations. The interns' behavior was often harmful. They would leave the lobby in disarray, and we had to preemptively remove sculptures, porcelain plants, and even a bookcase to prevent injuries. The aftermath of their visits included ruined linens, broken plumbing, and smoking damage in various rooms. Despite the adults being aware of the events, they were often negligent in supervising the interns, even providing drinks to those who were not allowed to. The company would cover the cost of the damages each year and still return for the event. We would include additional charges for the extensive repairs needed, such as the cost of keeping many rooms out of service during the cleanup and restoration process. Our hotel was one of the three that hosted this annual tour, and we were not shy about billing the company for all the necessary repairs and replacements, even for items like a treadmill that broke during their stay. Whether their guests were responsible for the damage or not, the company accepted the expenses without question. Another reminder, never ever use a chocolate fountain at a hotel or banquet hall. Imagine this scenario. It's an upscale Sunday brunch and young Timmy decides to dip both his hands holding strawberries into the chocolate fountain, bites into both, and then dips them again 3 times. An elderly woman sneezes near the fountain and someone else accidentally drops their snack into the chocolate. The worst part, that chocolate is strained and saved for the following week's brunch because chocolate is too expensive to discard. Chocolate can become too thick and seize up if it has the wrong moisture content, which can happen when people dip fruit with juices into the fountain. How do they fix this issue? By adding canola oil until the chocolate is smooth enough to flow again. So the next time you're at a wedding and see a chocolate fountain, remember this. Think about it when you're tempted to dip into that chocolate, which may be contaminated and thinned with oil. Story 5. During my time working at 2 hotels rated by Forbes, I learned about the intricate process of maintaining a high rating. These establishments are subject to random inspections, and there's a detailed checklist of requirements that the hotels and restaurants must fulfill to keep their prestigious rating. We were always on the lookout for any single diners as they could potentially be inspectors. This meant that even if you were just an ordinary guest dining alone, you'd receive the full 5-star treatment. There was one memorable instance where a woman named Katrina was staying at the hotel, and management discovered she was indeed an inspector. They took stills from the security cameras and distributed them to all the employees so we would recognize her. It was quite an operation to ensure everything was perfect for her stay. Another interesting aspect of working in a 5-star restaurant within a 5-star hotel was the frequent closure of the restaurant for private events. These events often came with a contract requiring a minimum spending amount. We would automatically receive a tip based on this minimum, but the real goal was to exceed it and increase our earnings. The guests attending these events were usually unaware of the financial details as they weren't the ones paying. If the group hadn't met the minimum spend by the end of the night, we would start serving the most expensive wines and liquors to reach the target. This could include rounds of Macallan 25 doubles, ensuring we not only met but often exceeded the minimum spend. Additionally, guests would still tip in cash on top of the open bar, making it possible to earn $500 in tips during these events. It was undoubtedly some of the easiest money I've ever made. Story 6. I had the unique experience of working at one of the premier hotels located at a top 10 ski resort in the country. It was a place that attracted celebrities, royalty, politicians, and athletes, giving me a glimpse into the lives of the rich and the famous. Hockey players stood out as the friendliest athletes by far. Royalty could be a mixed bag, some were genuinely pleasant while others were less than charming. A-list celebrities preferred to be left alone or treated like any other person. Politicians, especially when accompanied by their families, could be quite demanding. It was no surprise to see the usual vices among the guests. What amazed me the most was the staff's unwavering kindness to the guests, despite the constant challenges and disrespect from management. We endured low pay and little appreciation, yet we kept smiling until we eventually quit. The job required a tough exterior. If you didn't have it, you wouldn't last more than a week. One of the most memorable moments was witnessing the hotel's dog, an alpine breed that guests, especially children, adored, causing havoc. He escaped his pen and made a run for the high-end restaurant where he jumped on tables and devoured $100 steaks as if they were candies. A colleague and I saw the whole thing unfold. We were working late, cleaning up near the dog's cage, and we could have stopped him, but we chose to watch the chaos instead. It was, by far, the most entertaining day at work. Story 7. In some hotels, there's a real possibility that the bed you're sleeping in has seen someone pass away. This might sound surprising, but it happens more often than you'd think, especially in places where older guests might push themselves too hard. I worked at a hotel where nearly half of the beds had been where someone took their last breath. Bed bugs are a problem that can show up in any hotel, even the super fancy ones that charge thousands of dollars a night. These tiny guys can hitch a ride on your luggage when it's stored with everyone else's. If you find just a couple of bed bugs and none in the rooms around yours, it's a good bet they came in with a guest, not from the hotel itself. One thing that never happened, despite what people might think, was maids stealing from guests. It's a common accusation, but we always manage to find the missing items. Maids just have too much to lose and too much to gain from tips to risk their jobs over something small like a used tablet or cheap jewelry. Here's a good tip to keep in mind about bed bugs. When you first get to your hotel room, don't put your luggage on the bed. It's better to keep the lights off, take your bags into the bathroom, and then carefully check the mattress. Start by lifting the sheets and the mattress cover at the top of the bed. This is where bed bugs like to hang out, and they'll run away when the light hits them. If you spot any bed bugs, you can ask the hotel to move you to a different room. Alright, if you're enjoying the video, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and like button for more videos just like this. On to the next story. Story 8. Management really wants to make sure your stay is super smooth with help ready whenever you need it and everything you could want already there before you even ask. But there's a whole lot going on behind the scenes that you might not see. So let's talk about housekeeping. You see your housekeeper and maybe you notice a few others on your floor, plus a houseman and someone delivering special requests. But there's a big team you don't see. There are people at desks with radios keeping track of when to clean rooms, who needs special pillows, and how to handle it when a bunch of rooms all want service at the same time, like at 1 p.m. They also manage rooms that don't want any service that day. You don't see the supervisors checking rooms after guests leave to make sure they're clean, or the laundry teams working on different kinds of laundry, sheets, guest laundry, and splitting up dry cleaning from regular washing. You might see the folks cleaning public areas, but you probably miss the teams cleaning the pool or giving the gym sauna a deep clean. Every morning at 7:30 a.m., the service area gets super busy, like if you disturbed 2 ant nests and they all came rushing out. Even on a not-so-busy day, there could be 60 housekeepers working at the same time. And that's just for housekeeping. There's also a huge kitchen, actually 3 of them, plus one just for pastries. There are security teams, people getting ready for big events, and groups of engineers fixing things all over the place. I'm pretty good at finding stuff for special requests, and I still find new storage rooms all the time. We even found an old printing press from the 1930s that nobody knew was there. It really is wild how much is happening all at once. Cleaning 500 rooms in a day, setting up for 2 fancy weddings that cost $1 million each, taking care of 100 room service orders, and still running the hotel restaurant. And let's not forget fixing a leaky shower by the pool and making sure a guest has an extra couch for their kid who loves sleeping on couches. All of this is just a regular Tuesday in the summer. Story 9. At a place I worked about 20 years ago, the ceiling had that popcorn texture. We were supposed to be a 5-star hotel, but that always seemed a bit of a stretch. I remember a tragic incident where a man took his own life in one of our larger suites, and the aftermath was, let's just say it was troublesome to clean up. Some housekeeping staff refused to clean it and quit when management tried to force them. A maintenance worker agreed to do the cleanup, but he asked for a promotion and a 5-year contract with a payout if he was dismissed early. There was a lot of back and forth, and it took about 3 days of getting quotes and consulting with lawyers before they agreed. The smell was so bad that guests on the entire floor were complaining. The man did the cleanup using drywall ceiling stilts. He got his promotion and contract. Looking back, it's hard to believe that was allowed, but management wanted to avoid the attention that a hazmat crew or crime scene cleanup would bring to the hotel. I left a few months after that incident, but I later heard from a former coworker that there was another incident that led to the firing of all housekeeping and maintenance staff, except for that one man. He was the only one to keep his job after the shakeup. Story 10. I used to be the senior hotel manager of a big hotel in Las Vegas, and let me tell you, I've seen all sorts of things happen there. There are some secrets about hotels that not everyone knows, and I'm going to share a few with you. First off, bed bugs are something that every hotel has to deal with at some point. It's not because the hotel is dirty or anything, it's just that people who travel a lot, especially from other countries, sometimes bring them in. They stay in different hotels all the time, and bed bugs can even hitch a ride on airplanes. If you want to check for bed bugs, you should look at all the sheets really closely, check under the pillows, and even look around the mattress. These bugs are tiny and look a bit like small roaches. If you wake up and see little red spots on your sheets, that's a sign you might have been bitten by bed bugs. But sometimes it takes a few days for the bites to show up. Another thing is that if you check into a hotel really late at night, you might get a free upgrade or a really good deal on a nicer room. Hotels sometimes sell their fancy suites for way cheaper at night, like 80% off, just so they don't have any empty rooms. And if the hotel has too many people booked and not enough rooms, the people who show up really late, like around midnight, might get a free upgrade to a suite because the hotel has to find a place for everyone. But remember, if the hotel is totally full, showing up late might mean you get a smaller room instead. When you have a problem and you need to complain, it's always better to be nice and understanding. The guests who are polite and treat the hotel staff with respect usually get the best help and extra stuff to make up for any trouble. On the other hand, if you're rude and you're mean, you'll probably get the bare minimum. It's amazing how many people are not nice even when it's just a small problem. So remember to be kind and you'll be surprised at how much better things can go for you. Alright, I'm gonna take my risk and start checking into hotels late at night a little bit more often. Who knows, I may score a fancy suite for a fraction of the price, like 80% off? That's a pretty damn good deal. Story 11. Now, I've spent a lot of time writing guides about traveling to places in the Middle East like Dubai, Qatar, Bahrain, and Oman. Because of my job, I've had the chance to stay in some really fancy hotels all over the world. But let me tell you, this whole idea of rating hotels with stars, especially the 5-star rating, is kind of a mess. I remember talking to a manager at a really nice hotel in London, and he told me that the way they rate hotels is just silly. He explained that there's this long list of things a hotel needs to have to get a certain number of stars, and it's like a checklist with hundreds of items on it. One of the things a hotel needs to have to be called a 5-star hotel is fresh flowers in the rooms. But think about it, there's a big difference between having a big, beautiful display of orchids and just having a small bunch of daffodils. Both would pass the checklist, but one is obviously much nicer than the other. This manager also told me that even though his hotel and a few others in London got a 5-star rating from the Forbes travel guide, there are other incredible hotels in the city like the Ritz, the Langham, the Berkeley, and Mandarin Oriental Hyde Park that are only considered 4-star. It's hard to believe that these hotels are really less fancy than a place like the Al Bustan Rotana in Garhoud, Dubai, which is mostly a business hotel near the airport but has a 5-star rating. Another tricky thing about these ratings is that they don't change with the times. What people think is important in a hotel today is different from what they thought was important years ago. Take Wi-Fi, for example. It's something we all expect now, but it's a pretty new addition to the list of things a hotel should have. Back in the day, when the Savoy Hotel in London opened in 1889, they were super proud of having electric lifts, these speaking tubes that let people talk between floors, and bathrooms with all the plumbing already set up. That was considered really luxurious at the time, but now we expect more. In today's world with the internet and all, the best way to figure out if a hotel is any good is to often see what a bunch of people say about it. If you go on sites like TripAdvisor and see hundreds of reviews saying a hotel is too expensive and not great, it doesn't matter what the official rating says. And if a hotel that's only rated 1-star gets tons of praise from almost everyone who stayed there, that's a pretty good sign that it's a good place to stay. Story 12. One time during a big natural disaster, the staff at a hotel had to stay right there at the hotel. They were given a whole floor just for themselves. To make things interesting, they filled up the bathtubs with ice and put in all sorts of drinks. Some of the managers were so relaxed they were even seen walking around the back hallways in just their drawers. There was a really famous chef too, the kind who has a Michelin star, and the manager in charge of food and drinks. They were both caught on camera doing something they shouldn't have been doing with people who weren't their partners. This happened in a stairwell and it was all caught on tape. Some important leaders from a group that we can't name were in town for big meetings about world government stuff. These leaders were seen eating chicken in the lobby, and after they were done, they just threw the bones on the floor. It was quite a mess. A friend of mine used to be the boss, the general manager of one of the fanciest, most well-known hotels in America. He told me a story about someone who lived in one of the hotel's penthouses. This person had a really bad breakdown. They went crazy, broke everything in sight, and then ran down the hallway. It was a huge scene, and the hotel security had to subdue them to calm them down. The people living next to this person were super important, like the heads of huge companies that are in the Fortune 500 list. The reason the hotel was so expensive wasn't because they had to pay rent for the building. They actually owned the building outright. They got it for a super good deal from someone who used to own a casino but failed and then became a leader in politics. The price of staying at the hotel was high because they paid their staff a lot, wanted to keep the quality of everything really high, and also because they wanted to make a good profit. And if you learned a thing or two from any one of these stories, here's more for you. YouTube thinks you're going to love this. I'll catch you in that video, and thanks for watching with me on this one.